Welcome back to Evo GT. This is part 4 of the Focus ST sort of, I don't know, putting it back on the road, let's say. This has been off the road for 18 months. It was misfiring, my mate parked it up and that was that, he left it. But he come to me and said, Ben, I've got a few quid, can you sort it out for us? And here we are, putting this car back on the road. Here is the handbrake cable that I've been waiting for. And this is definitely a job I've not been looking forward to either. So I've drafted in some help again.
Your video is going to seem like I've moved in. I've been here that much.
Yes.
I've only been here twice.
Well, you look like you've moved in. Who's this all this shit? Here's
I've been here since before you were born, boy. Go on, let's get it done.
How good are you with handbrake cables? There's a lot to be said for experience, you know. We quickly realised that we needed to move this centre section of the exhaust out the way to give us better access. Once we got in there, we tried to cut off the near side rear cable, which was the cable that was stuck. Once we got that off, we pulled the cable through. We then did the other side, got the cable through on that as well, and eventually managed to get the whole handbrake cable out. Note to self, check the parts that you've bought and ordered. Well, technically Jay ordered these, not me, but what we didn't know was it was actually both sides. So where we've just wrestled with the car to get one side out of here, it looks like it's actually not supposed to. It was supposed to be all as one unit. So we're gonna just replace both sides, aren't we, mate? And by we, I mean you. Thanks.
Well, I've done half of it, so why don't you do the other half?
See, I released the cable from the handbrake itself as much as I possibly could to give us as much slack as possible, but it still seemed really, really tricky. Chris worked on the near side rear wheel anyway, and I worked on the driver's side rear wheel. We tried to fit these heat shields back, but they'd rotten where they fitted to the car, so we just threw them.
So I think most of you guys will know by now that Jay's owned this car for about 13 years. And I'm pretty confident in saying that he probably never did a car history check when he bought this way back in 2010. And as you can see by this car vertical check I've done for him, he's been a very lucky boy. There's no issues with this. But just imagine if all them years ago he went and bought this one instead. And on the face of it, it looks mint. It's clean, it's tidy, looks straight. And most of the information on this car vertical report checks out until you get to the damage. And on the face of it, it doesn't actually look that bad. There's a driver's side front bump there clearly, but a man like Mr. Chris Slicks, for instance, he'd have that sorted out in half an hour. But delving even deeper into this car vertical report, we can see that the insurance deemed this a Category S write-off. There is structural damage. Now, these reports check thousands of different databases worldwide, making sure that you've got all the information you need for your next car purchase. So it doesn't matter whether you're buying or you're selling, hit the link in the description box below and use code EVILGT for 10% off your car history check.
Now, we took it for its pre-MOT inspection the other day, and amazingly, all it needs is the heat shield, which separates the exhaust from the, well, it doesn't separate, but it goes between the exhaust and the petrol tank. And I've managed to get us one, brand new, from Parts Plus, £55 including VAT, and I've also got the little sort of circular spring clip things. I took this off because the other one was knackered. They rot here and then they just sort of flap about and make a noise and eventually just fall to pieces. So we've got a brand new one, we're going to put this on and then we can get it round the corner, get the MOT on it, and we can drive this then to the body shop to sort this absolute holy show out, which is the roof. Look at the state of that. That, well, it's beyond my certification, I'll be honest. I do, however, know that Jay, whose car this is, he wants a little bit more power, so I've spoken to our friends at Collins Performance and they've said, don't you worry, get it back on the road, get the bodywork looking mint, and we'll help you with a bit more power. Now, fortunately for us, or for me in particular, I've managed to draft in some help. So this is the resident grumpy mechanic, Ash, who doesn't want to be on camera, so I won't put Ash on camera, but he's going to help to lower this exhaust, and we can then hopefully, we haven't got to take everything off, we can try and sneak the heat shield just over the back of it. That's the plan anyway. So you're probably wondering why I've been messing about with the exhaust to try and manipulate it to get the heat shield over the top of it. And that's because this clamp here, which we've missed getting snapped, it was because it was so rusty that we were like, we know it's going to snap and we'd rather not try and undo it and snap it, so I'm going to have to get a new one. But there's no other way. We can't get the heat shield over the top. So that's that. We're going to have to take that off and I'll have to nip down the road and go and get a new one. Right, this is what we've got here. The grumpy mechanic strikes again. Lee was right. Fucking hell. We've got a boost pipe clamp that we're clamping the exhaust with, and Ash is having a right moan about it because it's not the right one. But I don't have the right one, so this is going to have to do. So mechanically now this car is absolutely bang on. Brakes sorted, misfire sorted, everything is perfect. Now it's time to get the MOT done. Once we've got a fresh MOT on it, we'll get it to the body shop. And just like that, she's MOT'd, ignored the spot. It absolutely flew through apparently, no issues whatsoever. I mean, we have changed the brakes and other bits and bobs, but not bad considering it's been stood around for 18 months. Anyway, next up is the body shop. So for those who may have missed the video, we can clearly see that the roof needs doing. The back of the car needs a good polish. I don't know if you can tell, but it is quite flat compared to the quarter. So the boot lid and the bumper are getting polished. The side skirts are getting sorted out. The bonnet is getting sorted as well, because obviously that is pretty bad. So these will be going back to black as well. Again, the grille, that's going to be painted back white. So that's going to get put back to the factory colour as well. So as you can see, there's been absolutely loads of prep. This roof is already looking miles better than it was before. I've had to reseal this because the strips pulled that all out. Roof's looking mint, all primed, nice and ready to go. Bonnet's been flatted back. These bits here at the front have been sorted out. Otherwise, this is looking absolutely incredible. Fast forward a couple of days and here is the car looking absolutely amazing. We've had the bottom of the bumper all painted back to white. That was black. Bonnet's been painted. It's all been polished. The roof is back to factory. We are missing this cap. I don't know what's happened to that. It's not in the boot, but we need to get a new cap just to fill that in. The spoiler's back on. The lights are back to factory as well. I think they look miles better. They were sprayed a weird colour. Everything at the back's been polished. But how much better does that car look now that it's back to factory condition? Now that you've got your car back, what are we saying? There's still obviously a couple of little bits to do with the lights and the grills and stuff, but otherwise, yeah, gotta be happy with that.
Looking well better, isn't it? That's all we have.
We've de-chavved it. Is that all right with you?
No, not really. There's an inner chav still.
Although I do think with the silver wheels and the white and everything, I think it looks miles better. I'm here with the Mark II Focus RS and the Mark II Focus ST. Jay is here. Gary is just in there at Collins Performance as well. We're hoping to make a bit more power out of this and a bit more power out of that. More importantly, the Mark II Focus RS is getting a little bit of love. It's going, hopefully, CP420, because we found out it does have a Mound Tune high pressure fuel pump. That does mean that it needs new injectors and it needs a turbo actuator too. So they're both going to get fitted here. We're going to get before and afters on the dyno, see what it's running now, see what it's running then. Fingers crossed we make 400 horsepower, because this needs to make good power like the Cupra. But don't worry, for those who will be wondering, we'll put the links to the injectors and the turbo actuator and anything else that we need for this car in order to run the CP420. I'll put everything in the description. So like all good tuners, we're going out on a road test first just to make sure that there's nothing untoward, there's no faults in it, there's nothing mechanically wrong with it before we go and give it a load more power. Gary, all good news? Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Well, that is great news. The plan is to try and do as much work from the top as we possibly can so that it avoids strapping it down to the dyno twice. We've obviously got the injectors and the turbo actuator to do. The turbo actuator is easier to do from the bottom. It can be done from the top with a bit more faffing about. So Gary's going to try and do as much as he can from the top, get it on the dyno, run it, see what power it's making currently, change the turbo actuator, the injectors, new tune, and then run it again. First things first, it's off with the scuttle panel, then the airflow sensor in the intake pipe and the actual intake pipe itself. Then we made a start on the engine covers, the cam cover. Down then, this is where it got fiddly, down to the back of the engine, to the heat shield on the top of the turbo. About 4 bolts, we ended up getting that out eventually. Then you can clearly see the turbo actuator there. Back on with the intake pipe, sticker on for the engine speed laser. Job done. Initial checks done, everything looks ready and set for the dyno. So whilst waiting for the Focus RS to be strapped down to the dyno, Jay has come with his Focus ST. This is running really old Code Red software, but you've been really impressed with it since you've had it.
Yeah.
And you've owned it since 2010, and it's been absolutely perfect since. Interestingly, Gary, who now works at Collins Performance, used to deal with all the Code Red stuff. He was probably the guy who put this on. What we're going to do instead, though, is put the latest Collins Performance software on it, which is going to be miles better because obviously it's much newer, much more advanced software. And then this will be even better. Tell us about the software that's currently on it.
Okay, this is Code Red software, which is something I was party of.
Is this a blast from the past for you?
Blast from the past, yes. I used to market this with my own company. between 2005 and 2011. I don't see many of them nowadays. This was developed in 2006. It's one of the first softwares available on a handset for the ST225, developed in Germany. Made a very nice, reliable, about 260 to 270 horsepower if you had all the hardware on it. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to put the latest software on, which is Collins, who I now work for. This software has been refined and developed over the last 10 years, and it's a significant improvement over the Code Red software.
Perfect. So the hardware that was on this, or the hardware that is on this, I should say, is like the Wolf intake and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And that's, you're saying, is even though it's very, very old, you're saying it's more than adequate.
It is. We're still using a version of the Wolf air intake that's been copied and cloned by a couple of other companies, and we still use those on the latest CP340s that we do.
The Code Red tune that's on this, with the hardware, so we know we've got an intake, stage 1 intercooler and an exhaust. What would you roughly be expecting this to be now? I know we don't know that for definite, but roughly.
Approximately 280 to 285 brake.
And the Collins software that you're about to put on it should be expecting around?
About 315 to 320.
So this is what happens as we get older, isn't it, Jay?
Yeah.
What have you just asked Gary for?
Pops and bangs off.
Off. To be took off.
Taken off.
And how old are you?
36.
How often do you get people asking you to take them off, being a Ford specialist? Surely everyone's like, no, I want them on.
They're going on, with the younger generation, they're going on at the moment more than they're coming on.
I thought you was young at heart. You was telling me you was young at heart.
I'm still a little young at heart, but the years.
He's got 2 kids, and I think his missus and 2 kids in the back of this, popping and banging through Warrington. Them days have long gone, J.A. So usually when you see cars being tuned, they plug the laptops into the OBD2 port, and then you can see things like boost pressure, engine RPM, all that kind of stuff that tuners need to see to make sure the car is happy doing what it needs to be doing. In this instance though, the guys don't actually trust the digital versions of all of that and want to get manual readings. So this laser here will be connecting to that reflective strip just on the cam there, and that'll get the engine RPM, and then is also teed off the recirc valve here, and that will give him his boost pressure. We're all strapped down now. Car's just going to get warm before we send it on its first run to see exactly what it's got now, based on what we think is the Mount Tune 350. Should be around 350 horsepower, theoretically, if it's got what we think it's got. So what are you thinking?
345.
What are you thinking?
I'm going to say 346.
Oh, you want to cheat?
I don't know.
How many horsepower do you reckon this has got? Bear in mind, Gary's already said 345. Jay has been a cheat and said 346. So what are you saying?
I'd say 355.
What are we saying?
340.
I'm going to go on the conservative side, like I did with the Cupra, and I'm going to say 335 horsepower. So we did 3 runs there. I didn't film all the runs, but we did 3 runs. What are we saying? How many horsepower? I guessed at 335.
373.
373? How can I be that far out?
I've seen Mount Tune cars make 373 when they've had a different intercooler and a full exhaust on before, so it's not unusual, to be honest.
I did not expect that. But as we all know, last time I guessed on the Cupra, I thought that was 200. And it was 290, it was like nearly 300 horsepower. So that means I owe everyone a breakfast. So that now we've established that I'm absolutely shocking at guessing horsepower, it's time to take the fuel rail out for the new injectors.
Basically, these injectors, 2 things. First of all, they're the larger capacity.
As in, you mentioned something about CCs. You said Bosch test them at a higher...
Yeah, I mean, basically, Bosch measure their injectors at 3 bar fuel pressure. The RS to start off with actually runs 4 bar, and your car's currently running 6.
And this is because of the Mount Tune fuel
Yes,
pump?
the Mount Tune fuel pumps.
Okay.
Which means the normal way you measure and calculate the size of the injectors goes out the window because of the fuel pressure it's running at.
So these ones, effectively, for your CP420 software,
Yes.
would you be changing these for your CP400?
Yes, we would, yeah.
And these ones are bigger. These
Yeah, they're
aren't
bigger.
Bosch, are they? These are a different brand.
No, the Siemenses, and they're
Siemens.
flow match, which means, so we have a company in Canada who actually then take these. Each injector is matched within 1 or 2% of each other, so they're
Okay.
actually all identical, so the match sets are 5. So whereas standard injectors, they're like plus minus 2 or 3%. In theory, these should be all exactly the same to make the car smoother running.
Now after Gary's lesson on injectors, it was out with the old ones and in with the new bigger ones. We then needed to secure the fuel rail back into position. Now the turbo was still red hot from the dyno runs, so we blasted that with the airline to cool it down, which then helped us to handle the turbo actuator and actually get it out.
Yep.
What a faff. I am sorry about that, mate. I will make sure that our audience on YouTube apologises personally for that taking at least twice as long as it should have done to get out.
Yeah.
So as we can see, the old actuator's just here, the new actuator's just here. Is this your own?
It is, it's our own design. It's got a progressive spring in it. Has the advantage of being able to do small openings on soft pressure as low as like 7 psi on this particular spring, and because it's a progressive spring, the further it moves the higher the resistance is, whereas the standard one is a linear spring, which is about 7 psi to 12 psi. This is going to be 7 psi to about 22 psi.
Got ya. Okay, so this is going to, effectively, for people like me, this is just going to give us more power.
It is going to give us more boost, yeah.
I never would have thought of this. Once the actuator had been fitted, it needed adjusting so that it only started moving at around 8 psi, as you can see just there. Once we'd done that, it was on with the intake plenum, ECU housing back into position, intake on, bolted up, and she's ready for her first run.
So now that those injectors are on and the turbo actuator is on, we've been guessing exactly how much power we think it's going to make with the new software. How many horsepower do you reckon it's going to hit on your stage 3 map going on now?
It is, yeah. I'm going to guess 410.
410 horsepower. So rather than under-egging it again like I usually do, I'm going to say 420 horsepower this time. So Martin, very, very quickly, I've guessed 420, Gary's guessed 410. What are you guessing?
I'll go in the middle, 415.
Perfect. And I've got to be honest, any of those three figures I'd be made up with.
It's like playing your cards
This
right,
is
isn't it?
scientific, this, isn't it?
427.
What's your name?
Michael,
Mike. What's your prediction?
430.
430, bold, I like it. If that's picking up on camera right, but that duct valve sounds incredible. We've been scratching our heads to try and work out exactly why it's not been giving us the correct amount of boost that we've been asking for, and it's because of this. This bit of equipment here has been our issue as to why that car has not been making the right amount of power. So as you can see, that is 417.8 horsepower and 428.8 foot-pound of torque. And for those of you who do newton meters like me, that's about 580 newton meters. Which means that our 146,000 mile Mark II Focus RS has made more power than the Cupra. More importantly than all that anyway, that reads 417.8 horsepower, which means it's closer to 420 horsepower than it is 415 horsepower, which means I won and Martin lost. But you come a close second, Martin. Never mind. And there we have it. The Focus ST is finished. The Focus RS is finished. Thank you very much to Collins Performance. They've done an unbelievable job. Squeezing that much power out of this is phenomenal. 417.8 horsepower to be precise, meaning that I win and I redeem myself from my shocking guess at what it was running on its mount tune. But if you've enjoyed today's video, thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed. Follow us on Instagram @EvilGTCars, and I shall catch you on the next video.